Welcome back everyone from spring break. We're going to be talking today about our second roster verification of the year. As you know, it's connected to teacher keys and leader keys, and it's a process whereby we verify the information for all of our students assigned to a particular teacher. For roster verification number 2, we'll only be working with second semester data. And this is Alan Barge, and you know you can call me or you can call Bill Shira anytime. And if we don't have the answers, we'll contact our specialist, Tawny Taylor, who is going to continue with this little presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, it's time for roster verification number 2. Please remember that with roster verification number 2, you are connecting student data to the teachers in the platform. It's very important that you take a look at each student's name and decide if they belong on your roster. Roster verification number 2 actually started on April 29th and it will end on Friday, May 17th. Let me repeat that. The last day will be Friday, May 17th. Like Alan said, you're working with second semester data only. However, teachers, when you look in the system, you will be able to see your first semester data from the first roster verification. It will be read only, but you can look back at that information. The Georgia Department of Education is going to calculate the 65% student enrollment for you, so you don't have to worry about removing students based on the 65% rule. Moving forward with roster verification number 2, teachers, all teachers evaluated with teacher keys will participate in this process. Keep in mind that the student ID number will be the GTID number. And a sidebar on this one, the course number must be the state number. Now, for this information, the GTID number and the course ID number, you can refer to Infinite Campus if you need to follow up and get more information or get the correct numbers. Teachers, the platform identifies you by your certificate ID number and not by your social security number. Now, principals and APs, keep in mind that you can run a report to see who has completed the roster verification process. The report will be the Teacher Keys Plan Status Report, and we've talked about it and shown it to you, but what we're going to do is resend those steps to you so you can run it and see who has completed the process by Friday, May 17th. Teachers will identify every child they serve in their classrooms through this process. All right, just a couple of district expectations that were provided to me by Alan and Bill. Teachers, please do not add students who enrolled after April 19th. Once again, if a student enrolled after April 19th, you do not have to add those children. Also, you can use Infinite Campus once again to verify student information if you need to. Here we go. It's time to go into the platform. To log on, you'll use the regular steps that you normally use, tle.godot.org. You'll log in with your certificate number followed by the system ID number. Don't forget to put in your password. Roster verification steps. It's now time to get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to do. Before we get started real quick, let's go through a few important reminders. All right, teachers, the check sign indicates that this is a correct student who belongs on your roster. So if you click on the check sign, that means you want to keep that student on your roll. The minus sign, that means that you want to remove this student. This student is an incorrect student, you do not teach the student, and you need the student removed. This time we have a brand new symbol. It's the pencil. You will use the pencil to edit student records, and I'll tell you more about that in just a minute. Now, the fourth bullet is so important. This is the blank page. Teachers, when you log on and you first look in there, if you don't have any student records, the page is blank, you will stop at that point and go to the sign-off process. And I'm going to give you more information on that in just a minute. But just remember, if the page is blank, do not start adding students. You will go to the sign-off process, which is the final step, and you'll sign off. Now, we have sort features again. You can click on the 4 fields to sort: student ID, last name, first name, and course ID. But keep in mind you can only do a primary sort. You can't do a secondary sort. So if you select course ID and they're sorted by course ID numbers, you can't do a last name sort within that sort. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's follow the steps. Let's go through it step by step. The first thing you're going to do is click on the roster verification tab. Teachers, you can see this tab. However, principals and assistant principals, you will not have access to this tab on your platform. So what you'll need to do is check in with a teacher if you want to see what these screens will actually look like. All right, once you're in, after you've clicked on the roster verification tab, you will click on the drop-down box and you will select second roster verification. Remember though, teachers, you can also see the first semester roster verification data too, but it will be read only. So you'll go to the box and select second roster verification. Now, just a reminder, if you go in at this point and the screen is blank, you don't see anything, you will stop at that point and go to the sign-off process. Steps for correct students. Here's what you're going to do if you want to keep a child on your roster. All right, you'll click on the check sign. It will be to the left of the child's name to verify that students are on your roster. Once again, if you want to keep that child there and confirm and verify that you actually teach that child, you'll click on the check sign. If no data appears, remember once again, skip to the sign off on roster verification step, and I'll show you that in just a few minutes. Steps for incorrect students. This is how you're going to remove those students who you do not teach. All right, you'll click on the minus sign, which is right there to the right of the check sign, to indicate students who are not on your roster. After you click on the minus sign, you have to give a reason. So if you click on the drop-down menu for the children who you want to remove, it will be right there beside their name. You will select a reason from that box as the reason for removing that student from your roster. Also, if you look all the way to the right, you'll see comments boxes by every child's name. If you want to add additional reasons or additional information about that child, you can also do that. But please remember, this step would be optional for the comments. All right, this is a new step and we're so excited. This is how you will edit student records. Remember, you're going to look for the pencil. You'll click on the pencil to edit a student's roster record. The pencil will sit right there to the left of the check. Once you click on the pencil, a pop-up box is going to open. When you see the pop-up box, you will type in the correct information in the appropriate boxes. So you're verifying each child's information and you notice that you actually teach a child, however the student ID number is incorrect. So you would click on the pencil and then this pop-up box will appear and you would put in the correct student ID number, first name, last name, or course ID number. Remember, the student ID number is going to be the GTID number and the course ID number is going to be the state number. Remember, you can also get this information from Infinite Campus. Once you finish filling that in, you'll click on Save. All right. Here's how we add students. These are the steps for adding students. But remember, once again, I know I've said this a few times, if you didn't have any student data, you will not go to this step. You'll go to the final step, which will be adding the sign-off step. All right, here's how we're going to add a student. You've looked at your roster and you realize that you're missing a child who's been with you and you want to add that child. So what you'll do is go to the top left-hand side and you'll click on the button that reads Add New Student Record. The Add Roster Record will pop up toward the middle of the screen after you click on the Add New Student Record button. All right, in that box, you will enter student ID, first name, last name, and course ID. Once again, student ID is the GTID number, and course ID would be the state number. After doing that, you'll click on the Save button that sits inside of the pop-up box. Now, remember once again, if you didn't have any student data, Don't add any, all right? And also, if you teach this child for several courses, you will have to enter this child the number of times that you teach that child. So for instance, if you teach the child 3 different courses, you will enter that child 3 different times with 3 different course numbers. All right, final step. These are the steps for signing off on roster verification. All right, once you have verified all the students on your roster, remember you did that in the roster verification tab, you are now going to change gears and go over to the teacher and leader keys effectiveness tab. You'll click on the gray arrow next to your name and then select edit. And this will be the same step that you would go in to take a look at your formatives and your walkthroughs. Once in there, you will have 6 containers that will appear. You will click on the plus sign next to the teacher effectiveness measure container. Now, remember, this is kind of a new container. With this container, it sits toward the bottom on top of the conference tools container. You will click on the Actions button, select Manage next to Roster Verification, and in you will go. Just another quick reminder, this would be the final step also for those teachers who didn't have any student data, because you still have to sign off. All right, once you get to this screen, you'll click on New to add a comment if one is needed. Now, if you had student data, whether or not you add comments, this would be optional. It's up to you. But if you didn't have any student data, you must follow this step. You'll click on New. When the box appears, you will type in all caps, no student data. All right, you'll type in no student data in the comment box. Remember, this is a required step if you didn't have any student data. At this point, you will click on Save. So whether or not you had student data or not, you will click on Save. Once you click on Save, you will then click on Accept, because that's your electronic signature. And once you click on Accept, if you look up in the top left-hand corner, the Actions box or button will appear. You will hover over that button or box, and what will happen is that Mark Complete will pop up. You will then click on Mark Complete. Now, teachers, this step is so important that you click on Mark Complete, because this is how you let your principal and your AP know that you have finished the process. If you don't click on Mark Complete, then when they look in their report to verify, it will actually show in progress. So you want to make sure that you click on Mark Complete to indicate that you have finished all the steps, you have checked your roster, you have added comments if needed, or if you didn't have any data, you've put in no student data, you have clicked Save, Accept, and you're now marking it complete. Okay, that concludes our steps for roster verification number 2. I want to thank you for your time today. If you need anything at all, please let us know. Please contact us anytime. We're truly here to serve and support you. We will make sure that you have our email addresses and our phone numbers. And a big thank you also before I close to Alan and Bill and Rod. They've done a fantastic job with this entire process. Good luck and happy roster verification number 2.